U.S. Congress is going to have something to say about Iran and some other issues. President Obama is going to try to put the NSA controversy in the rearview mirror if he can on Friday. He's going to announce his reform plans. He's expected to embrace many of the recommendations floated by a review panel that he convened last month. Members of that panel will testify on their proposals at a Senate hearing tomorrow. Now, among the changes the president is expected to lay out, extending privacy protections to non-U.S. citizens and installing a public advocate to argue before the Intelligence Surveillance Court. But the biggest reform he's expected to endorse is restructuring the phone data program that has collected information on billions of calls, texts, and emails, etc. in the U.S. One idea is to put the information back either in the hands of a third party or in the telephone companies themselves instead of having it housed by the NSA. But like many other of these reforms he's expected to seek, that proposal might have to go through Congress first. So with me now, California Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, member of the House Intelligence Committee, and also was briefed last week at the White House about some of these reforms. But before I get to NSA, very quickly, there's a lot of bipartisan skepticism about this Iran deal. I know you see this as a positive first step. But do you believe passing sanctions now, even if they're delayed to take effect until after the 6-month deal, is as detrimental as the administration believes it is?
I do. I think it's a real risk. We don't know how the Iranians will respond, but Iran has to know that if they renege, if they cheat, sanctions will come flying out of the Congress. So it's not necessary to do it now, and by doing it now, we do run the risk of Iran walking away. And
you worry about giving the Iranians an excuse to walk.
I do, and I also worry that our partners who are key to these sanctions will view us as the one driving an end to the negotiated process.
All right, let's go to the NSA. You were a part, the Intelligence Committee folks were brought in, both House and Senate, bipartisan group, brought in. A little bit of a briefing. What did you learn? What should we expect to hear from the president on Friday as far as these reforms are concerned?
It was really the president's effort to try to get a sense of what the Congress thinks. How should the metadata program be restructured? Should it be restructured? If we move to an independent advocate, an adversarial process at the FISA court, what should that look like? Should that advocate be appointed by the court, part of the court? Should it be appointed by outside experts?
Right.
So
who decides who the advocate is?
Who decides who the advocate is? Will it have the confidence of the public? He got a lot of conflicting feedback from the group of us that were there. A lot of very deeply held and divergent views.
Right.
Although I think on the issue of the independent advocate, there was a lot of consensus.
Okay, so we're going to get an independent advocate. The metadata, the mass collection of data. This is the big breach that Americans sit here and look at and go, boy, is everything I'm doing the NSA has access to. He's going to announce some reform. The question is it the phone companies that keep it themselves? And does the U.S. government have to use taxpayer dollars to pay them to do this? Or is it a third-party entity? What do you favor? What do you expect?
I don't think it's going to be a third-party advocate, and that's something that I tried to make a point on with the president.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. You don't gain anything
You
from
either
it.
Keep it with the phone companies.
Keep it with the phone companies or keep it in the present form. But if you have a third party do this, it will be viewed by the public as a surrogate of the NSA. You gain nothing from the privacy point of view. I hope that he moves to the model where the phone companies keep their own records. Right. We can get those records, I think, still in a timely way. There is some cost to it from a national security point of view, but the privacy cost of gathering all these millions of domestic calling records of Americans, I think, is too high to pay.
And I have to say, there's a new report out, New American Foundation, it's in this morning's Washington Post, that all of this data collection, you can't directly link it to any thwarted terrorist attack. Can you?
The impact of that program has been modest, I think, is fair to say. But the intelligence community views it as just one tool that in combination with others can be effective. From my point of view, if it only has a modest impact, and I don't think anyone can make the case it's much more than that, it can't justify the gathering of these millions of records when it can be done in another way where the government doesn't have to obtain all that information.
Should we expect Congress to send its own set of reforms to the president's desk? We know a lot of members have reforms, but can this Congress agree to a set of reforms that actually gets voted out in the House and Senate?
Very difficult. Very tall order for a very dysfunctional Congress, which is why I think the president is going to need to go as far as he can through the executive process. A lot of these things can be done, the restructuring the metadata program, in significant part by the executive acting on its own.
So you guys kind of a bystander here a little bit.
Well, we shouldn't
be, but you're going to be.
Probably.
Adam Schiff with some honest words, Democrat from California. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming in.